So how are you going to find a business or startup idea that you can actually stick to? We've all heard you have to pick something that you can grind at for 7 years. And in this video, I'm going to show you what they say of how to break it down to decide how to pick the right startup idea so that you'll actually stick to it and follow it through. Now, I'm actually a lifelong entrepreneur. I studied at a university over a decade ago. I did a startup.
Founder and CEO of Unity.
Big technology.
Lewis Horn.
$100 million company. Look at me. Hello. That went for 7 years. I was the CEO. But that's not what qualifies me to make this video. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You see, I'm just like you. I'm a switcher, a dopamine chaser, somebody who looks at the lady in the red dress and thinks, ooh, that's a shiny new thing that I can learn or chase. You know, the next idea, the next idea. And I saw that from my parents as well. And now I realize I follow the same path. Although I did stick to that car company for 7 years, even though I was struggling so bad, the fact is I had public accountability.
Swedish car designers.
Efficient as possible.
Sometimes you put something out in the public and then you're really stuck on the path of delivering that. The problem is I did fail at that in a very terrible and dramatic way. So now that kind of failure can't harm me. Now that public accountability doesn't work anymore. I'm also what you call an ENTPA, assertive debater, on the Myers-Briggs Type Index. It tells you what kind of person you are. And that means I'm kind of always debating the world and often debating my own projects. So these are the tricky parts that we have to be able to solve. So how do we pick the right business idea or startup that we can follow through on the whole way? Well, Robert Greene calls it finding your life's task. And one thing that he recommends to do is find the things that excite you from when you were a child. Did you really like words? Did you really like music? Was it animals and plants? Perhaps it's biology. And find those cues from way back in your past. And there's many different ideas that different people give, but they all kind of ladder up to the same thing. And that thing is finding out who you are and what you care about. I'll give you an example. I have a good friend, Jack. He's a founder. He founded a bike company after bike company, and now he has his latest startup, kicking ass, which is again in the bike industry. And Jack, he loves bikes, and he's always loved bikes, and he always will love bikes. So I thought to myself, well, what do I love? And what do I hate? That's another tip from Robert Greene. What do you hate? What do you love? In my case, it's a little bit tricky because I realized the things that I love and hate are not physical or real things. They're abstract things. I hate tyranny. I love agency. I love courage. I love to face a difficult challenge. But the problem is with these abstract ideas, they don't necessarily translate to a specific startup. One thing I've always loved to do is when I see anybody else fighting to have their own freedom or use their own agency or their own courage to start up a startup, I'm super excited to help them with all the different knowledge that I've learned over the years. And that's one of the advantages of being like us, chasing the next thing all the time. You learn so many different skills. The problem is, if you're like me, you're a bit of a prospector, you're building something really flashy and shiny and shooting it out to the world and seeing if you get any immediate bites back. And if there are not enough bites, maybe along the way you'll find the next thing that looks even more sexier or have a better idea and a better idea. And this is not going to work over the long term. So let me tell you a bit of a case of how I've done it at the moment. My current startup is called Nest. It's a two-sided marketplace to help tradies, like tradespeople, skilled workers, and homeowners meet together on the internet and manage their jobs better. For me, solving a problem that's worth solving is very important. So I first do a lot of research to decide, is this a problem that's really worth solving? So I see there's a housing crisis in a lot of parts of the world. Less and less people want to do skilled trades. It's not very sexy. So there's a big problem when there's not enough people, or the people are not productive enough, or they're not readily available to go and fix all the houses so that we can solve this problem. Okay, number one, so we've got a problem that's worth solving. Number two, I'm helping people have their agency because these skilled workers and tradies, you know, that's why they want to do it in the first place. They don't do it because they want to work for some asshole boss. They do it because they want to have their own van one day. They want to make money as a contractor out on their own. And that's why, for example, in Australia, we have like 1 million sole traders. The average amount of employees per construction company is 1.1. That means it's basically a guy in a van. And that's what they're striving towards doing. But they have a big barrier, which is running the business. And that's why I can do that app. The question is, do I love that group of people? And do I love that job? Hell no. And that's a question that I got to ask myself, like, will I be able to continue driving on this for 10 years. Right now, I can say, I'm not sure, or even I doubt it. But there is a way around that, and there is a way to manage that, which we'll get to in a second. The point is, for you, it's a good idea to work out what are the things you really love, the things that you can continue doing for a long period of time, and hopefully that's something that's already packaged well into a ready-made business, like fitness. Me, for example, I like spearfishing, I like cycling and Muay Thai and all different kind of sports, but it's only ever over a short period of time where there's a steep learning curve. I can master it and then move on to the next thing, which again is great to learn a lot of different sports, but it's not like a lifelong of fitness. Now, I do like fitness, but it's not like I want to make a business out of that per se. It's not something I want to dedicate my life to. The question is, do you have to be able to dedicate your life to it? It certainly is a big advantage if you are narrow in one field and can continue driving in that one field over the long term, which is not the case for me. It's more of many different things in a very, very broad background. So all I can do is say, well, these abstract ideas like freedom and courage and agency, and the fact that I don't like tyranny and I like my time freedom, I have to try to find a business that can fit those criteria. And in your case, it could be you like to connect people, or maybe you're one of the lucky ones that just cares about money. Then you can just, hey, whatever makes the most money, go after it. But again, you should probably find the space where you can really master it so that you can go right into the finer details and know as much as you possibly can about that one area. So again, for me, I've chosen it based on, hey, there's a group of people that are fundamentally entrepreneurs, even though they're entrepreneurs in the form of a plumber or a handyman or a carpenter. They're not good at computer stuff generally and business stuff, so that's something I can certainly help with by doing the marketing side and the admin side through a piece of software. So in short, for you, have a think about who you are. What are the things you hate? What are the things you love? Are there any physical objects? Are there abstract things? And start to boil those down. So for me, I love communicating to people. I've always done a lot of different videos here and there on the internet, but I realize that's something I always keep coming back to because I love to be able to speak to people. And this is such an easy way to do it at scale and help people that are also fighting for their own freedom and agency and trying to build something of their own so that they can be free. It's just important that you know this. We're never free if we're always chasing. And the only way to stop chasing is to find the path, commit to it, and continue over the long term. But it's not to say that everybody has to be dedicated to one idea for a decade. I happen to be one of these technology startup guys, but even in a normal business, as long as you can get it far enough to either A, design it so that you can make an exit, so that you can sell the business, which can happen within 3 years, but if it's not ready there yet, you're going to have to keep on pushing past that wall. Number 2, of course, you can hire people. Or number 3, well, you could do like Elon and actually do parallel different businesses, but that's never going to work if you haven't found your product market fit, or you're not finding that the customer is loving your product, telling their friends, and the business is growing. Generally, the founder will need to stay in the company if the company needs to continue innovating, and the day that it doesn't need to innovate anymore is probably a good day to sell it or to hire somebody else to run it. So there are alternatives to running a business for 20 years, but of course, if you can find that thing that you want to do over the long term because you love it and it's solving something that you hate, then you've got a real opportunity to continue chasing that thing because it gives you the feeling and the intensity that you want and that you keep on craving more and more and more of. I hope this has been of help. Thank you very much for your time. Hit a like and subscribe, and I'll keep sharing whatever I can think of. Good luck.